A lot of people do it themselves, that I was being put in positions as a manager that weren't right and that I was uncomfortable with. And how dare you disobey?
Well, hello there and welcome to the About Small Business podcast, the podcast that talks to you about businesses all over the North East, the business owners and how these really are the pillars of our communities. In this episode, I'm talking to Jan Cook of Jan Cook Wills and Trusts Limited. There we go. Right, Jan, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We're laughing because I did say I was going to take about 3 attempts to get that right, but nailed it in the first attempt.
Well
so
done.
thank you so much for coming on, Jan.
No, pleasure.
So, Jan, it's a bizarre thing because I've read a little bit about your background and you've got an education background.
Yeah.
You've decided to start up your own business. And in wills and trusts of all things, that's quite...
Yeah, it wasn't a conscious decision.
Right.
I think I'm of an age where when you start your career, you expected to have that career for life.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely not like that now. You know, both my son and daughter-in-law, they're both on their second careers already in their 30s. But I initially trained as a medical secretary.
Right.
And then because I actually did quite well at the studying for that, I was encouraged to train as a teacher of shorthand and typing. And so then after about 5 years, I decided, I was doing a few night classes. I decided that I would like to do further education and teaching that.
Right, okay.
Because by then I'd met my husband, he was a teacher, and I was thinking, I ain't going to be working the long summer holidays and he's going to be off enjoying himself. I want some of that myself. So I trained, started teaching secretarial studies and ended up in further education. And then over the years, just progressed, you know, team leader, head of section.
So is it fair to say that you're quite academic when you're actually at school yourself?
No. Absolutely not. No,
Really? That's interesting because from what you've said, you've enjoyed the learning, you've enjoyed the study.
Yeah. But I think that's why I'm passionate about further education, because it's about giving people second chances.
A second chance.
Or people who develop maybe later the opportunity to maybe come and kind of redo things.
Yeah.
Or,
and you mentioned night classes.
Yeah.
Is that still a thing?
Yeah, but not to the same extent.
I was going to say, because I remember once, myself and my wife, we left university back in sort of 1995, and we kind of missed the boat on computers. I did do a course at school, which was like sort of similar to what it sounds like you were teaching, with the sort of the typing, that kind of thing. But we missed the boat on the computers, and I remember we did a night class, and it seemed quite a big thing for people to be doing night classes.
Yeah, it was a huge market.
And I think for what you said about second chances as well, just like, so we didn't really get it at school, but now we can see a point to it.
Yeah, I mean, that I was kind of at the beginning of all of that. So I started teaching in the FE in 82.
Yeah.
So when I started working in a secretarial capacity, computers were just coming in. I mean, I learned to type on the old manual that you'll see in Beamish Museum, where you really had to pound, and I still get criticised when I get carried away on the keyboard and I'm bashing away. But because I was kind of in at that stage, I was there at the start of all of people realising we need to know how to kind of touch type, we need to know how to operate a computer, we need to know what a spreadsheet is, and there was just a mass of different courses that people could do. Now when I look at the offering at the college where I worked for night classes, there's hardly anything there.
There's really not, is there? And it's an interesting shift. In your view now, looking back, do you think that's because so many people are learning online?
I think I don't think they're taught how to kind of use computers and certain bits of software anymore. I think they are used to technology from such an early age that it just is second nature to them. They don't want to be taught anymore because they think they know how to do it. And by and large they can work their way around it because their mind has been trained. I mean, I know from my 4-year-old grandson or even my 2-year-old granddaughter, they'll pick a phone up and they know how to swipe on it. So I don't think there's the necessity. It used to be a huge bugbear of mine when we would get people coming in when schools started teaching IT, which was after we'd started doing it in the college. They would come in and obviously they hadn't been taught how to type properly in terms of touch type.
I was just going to ask you about that because you'd mentioned earlier on about touch typing, and I don't know how, but I seem to be able to type reasonably quickly. Probably couldn't do it as fast as you, but I can type fairly quickly. And I see, like, sort of, as you've mentioned, like, sort of my daughters, like, sort of the thumbs going hell for leather on the phones.
They'll end up with RSI.
More than likely, yeah. But it's interesting because, I mean, obviously your layout, your QWERTY keyboard layout is designed, sort of scientifically designed, isn't it, to accommodate that speed of typing. Is touch typing, is it even still a skill, or is it just something that people are picking up?
I don't think there are any kind of secretarial courses anymore. You'd be lucky to be employed as a shorthand typist or personal secretary anymore. A lot of people do it themselves.
I suppose,
my eldest son works down in London. He's a barrister. Now, years ago, you would have had people doing all that, but everything he does himself. All of the typing up, the reports, that would never have happened. So it's got rid of a kind of a huge career path for people. But we would get kids in that had been doing IT and using the keyboard a bit and just being left to bang on it however they wanted, and then we were expected to turn them into shorthand typists, personal secretaries, and trying to undo all of this and get them to do the correct finger work was, and I just used to, like, why don't they teach them that first at school? And then they're going to be in a much better position. But I mean, what did I know? Things have just progressed so much.
Well, I suppose, the other curious thing is handwriting, isn't it? It's like, because in amongst your skills that you were teaching earlier on in your career, was shorthand a thing?
Yes, I did. I used to teach shorthand as well.
Because, sort of and it's an interesting one. I remember sitting and having a conversation with a number of English teachers, and the people come, kids don't bring pens into schools, and it's like, well, just they're not valued, they're not a valued item. And if you're enjoying this content, please do like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to let you know exactly when another podcast's going to drop. I like writing things down. I'm a big lists person, to-do list, like sort of first thing in the morning or last thing at night, I'll make my list for the following day that I want to tick off and get a bit of a buzz ticking it off. But short of that, I can't remember the last time I wrote a substantial...
No. And I can't anymore because it hurts my hand if I have to write for any length of time, because I don't do it. It's just all on the keyboard now. If I have to sit and write, or if I had to take notes or anything, I don't know how easy that would be.
I suppose and again with voice recognition, and then again that's going to be another skill that possibly goes by the wayside or deemed not necessary. Or
I mean, I still think that touch typing is a really good skill to have. I taught both my sons when they were about 10, 11 to touch type, because I said it'll come in really handy.
I think speed, efficiency, but also something you mentioned earlier on, just as regards the repetitive strain injury.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm at an age now where all sorts of aches and pains
Yeah.
surfacing. I mean, you know, I go to the gym fairly regular, I keep fit, but in a morning, it's, you know, pain in my lower back.
Wind yourself up.
Yeah, that's it, and it's quite a shock. And I think with sort of traditional trades like sort of, you know, sort of labourers, painters and decorators, plumbers, joiners, it's more common for them, and they're sort of known for that. But you know, with the more office-based tasks, I don't know, it's that sort of RSI. You don't think about it quite so much. It's like sort of not perceived as strenuous, but they're all muscles.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
It's
So and if you don't use them properly, then that's when you get the problems.
Yes, that's it. And if that's going by the wayside, then we are going to see more issues. But so we've got a period in further education as well. And what is really fascinating me is how we then got, because I mean, you said to me you retired.
Yes. Yeah.
And or left, whichever way we want to look at it. How do we go from? Well, in fact, let's look at sort of what made you leave.
Right. Things had been changing in education and particularly further education for quite a while. And as I ended up my career as a curriculum manager, looking after several different curriculum areas. It was a job I loved. It wasn't, I think I had the best years out of further education when I go back to when I started.
Yeah.
That buzz of training people to do a job and become vocationally competent, you can't beat that. But it changed from that. We became so much more data-driven, results-driven. You know, if you're not achieving these results, then the processes that were put in place to manage that became difficult for me as a manager, that I was being put in positions as a manager that weren't right and that I was uncomfortable with. And because I had been in that career for a long time, I kind of was a bit more comfortable to stand up and say, no, I'm not doing that. That's not right.
We clearly agree on let's put it politely, the clumsy way that the data-driven education has been implemented.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who turns round and says, well, teachers are just feeling like that because they don't want to be accountable?
It absolutely isn't that. I mean, teachers are accountable day in, day out for what they're doing, and they have a really enjoyable job if it's going right and they can do what they're trained to do, but they're just so hidebound now by control for the curriculum. They've got no freedom to kind of, let's veer off here and let's have a look at this because that's really relevant and it'll be fun and it'll make it easier for you to remember and relate back to when you come to your exams. You're just so controlled by the curriculum in front of you that it's just a really difficult job. The kids become more challenging as well, and you're trying to manage difficult disciplinary issues alongside the kids who really do want to learn and their learning's being disrupted. It's a whole kind of just mix up of...
It is, yeah.
I
often
think unless
felt...
anybody's been in a classroom or observed that, they've got no idea the pressure.
No, I often felt that if you weren't doing a good job, the kids are going to punish you by acting up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as I say, it could be, I think, as you've kind of alluded to in what you've just said, it could be that you're not necessarily doing a good job because you're bound by constraints of the institution of government and education policy. And again, like you say, that is going to cause people to act up. We've got, lots of kids kicking back against that now. I mean, we're blaming lockdown for it. All kids aren't the same since we've come back from lockdown, but
It's always been there.
it's, yeah.
I mean, maybe not to the same extent, and I really do feel for the kids that went through lockdown. I think that's just horrendous for them.
Yeah.
To go through that and still be expected to achieve to the same levels. But the targets that staff are put under to achieve, you know, they're given those targets at the beginning of the year. This is your achievement target for the end of this year, before they even know the kids that they're going to have sat in front of them, you know.
I think that was the biggest thing for me. It's there's one year group in particular I remember teaching and thinking there is no way, there's no possible way that this year group are going to exceed last year's. And when you look at, I mean, over the sort of past couple of decades, you look at GCSE results and there's this like nice linear progression going up and up and up by a couple of percent every, and it people aren't like that. No. And this concept that, well, if you get to there by this year, you're going to get there by... It's like in height, if we look at your pupils' heights, well, okay, well, you've reached 5 foot by the age of whatever, so therefore you're going to be 6 foot by... It doesn't work like that. It's, I mean,
my eldest son is like, well, they're both bright kids, but the eldest one, you know, is really academic.
Yeah.
But with the first lot of SATs that he did in primary school, he wasn't interested. He was probably frustrated and not being stretched enough or whatever. But he, you know, and you know, all your friends saying, "Oh, my kid's got this level," and he didn't, and you know. But because my husband and I were in education, we thought, we're not bothered. You know, what is this a judgment of? You know.
Yeah. I think that's it. It's like sort of that realisation that the SATs are only really important for the school, and to put schools under that level of pressure, that is then going to impact on your kids. And it, you know, you can say, oh well, it shouldn't. Well, no, it shouldn't, but it does, and it will. And you know, and we've got this pressure showing through. So it's so yeah, I think it's probably very understandable you deciding that you've had enough of that. It
was just the pressure that I was put under to treat my team of staff in a certain way, because and I was like, well, no, that's illegal, that's immoral, I'm not doing that. So then I became the target, because I wasn't towing the line.
That's it.
And how dare you disobey? And I mean, I was getting up to the age where I could kind of take early retirement and access my occupational pension. And I just thought, do you know what? I don't need this in my life. So I just left. Strangely enough, they didn't tell any of my staff.
Really?
No. So that I left kind of mid-July. Staff all came back in September. And it was like, where's Jan? Oh, she must still be on holiday, and nothing was ever said.
Wow, it's quite incredible, isn't it? Really. I mean, when you decided you were leaving,
I've been there for 30 years, by the way.
Right, and so you are going to be missed. Yeah. It's not like, oh, we'll not tell anyone, they won't notice. 30 years, wow.
Yeah, and that's how you end up. You know, end your career. Really, it was quite sad.
It is like when you think about what you've contributed, what you've given. I mean, when you left, was it a sense of relief? Did you have any plans as to what you were going to do next? No,
I was just going to retire. My husband was teaching. He had always planned to retire and go at around the 55 mark. But he ended up in a slightly different contract where he was working as a secondary school teacher, doing PE in primary schools, and it was a nice little role for him to kind of end his last few years. So he was quite happy with that, but he was still going to go in the next year or so. And he was adamant that when he went, that was it. He wasn't going to be doing anything else. And I thought, oh, we'll have a nice retirement together.
I'm just pause you on that one. What did you anticipate that would look like, out of curiosity? The nice retirement, you've left, both of you can enjoy your lives doing what you want. What did you expect that would look like?
Travel, you know, grandchildren, just that kind of thing, but not continuing to work necessarily, but very quickly I realised that I still needed to be doing something.
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't anything to do with education. I didn't want anything,
Yeah.
A lot of my...
Change is as good as the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of my colleagues went into being moderators for exam boards and things like that. I just wanted a clean break.
Yeah.
And a friend said, why don't you become a virtual assistant? And I was like, I don't even know what that is, which is strange given that it's connected to where I started.
I was going to say, I can see
career.
the logic through that. Yeah.
And so when I looked into it, I thought, oh, yeah, I could do that. I've got all the skills. So I took time out. My eldest son was in South Africa training. He used to do quite a bit of athletics, and he was out doing warm weather training. So I went out for 3 weeks and spent that time planning a business, what I would call it, what I needed to do, processes and procedures I'd need to have in place, thinking about logos and all of that, and came back and I was like, right, ready to go here. And so I set up as a virtual assistant and did that for 12 to 18 months.
Right,
probably.
okay.
And as part of the networking for that, there was a solicitor was going to a conference about the launch of a new, not career, but a new way of doing things.
Yeah.
Like will writing and estate planning, which is what I do now. And he said, why don't you come along and see what it's about? But his idea was that he would do that.
Yeah.
And I would provide him with clients from my clients to keep him going. And I sat and listened through it and I thought, do you know what? I can't see any reason why I couldn't do that myself. That sounds the kind of thing that I would be, quite enjoy doing. So I had a word with the guy who was delivering the training at the end of the day. And he said, no, he said, you're absolutely the kind of person that we're looking for. He said, without being rude, you've been around the block.
Polite way of putting it.
Thank you. But he said, you're older, you've got experience, you've got that empathy that you need in that type of career. You seem as though you'd be able to speak to people in a non-legal way that they would understand. So he said, no, absolutely, go for it. So I did the training.
It's interesting. I remember chatting to a friend in IT and we were having that conversation about language that is appropriate to certain professions. And he was saying in IT, they would speak in such a way to make it sound as though what they were doing was too complex. Would confuse people. And, the sort of legalese, the language that solicitors use, apparently that's done for the same reason. And off camera, we were chatting about, a legal profession that I'd use a specialist for this service. And rather than paying the £2,500 to the solicitor, I paid £700 for the other, this specialist who's done a more efficient job. When I was first introduced to you, it's like, this sounds like a similar service. You're not charging an astronomical hourly rate, and which I'm sure not all solicitors do that, but certainly you look at some of these big fancy offices and that money's got to come from somewhere.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't want to discredit solicitors at all, but I see them in a similar way to you would consider your GP. You go to them because there's something wrong, but they're a jack of all trades, if you like, and so they would then refer you on
to a specialist.
And I see estate planning as a specialist area of law that solicitors are not always very good at.
No, I think that is interesting when you get that very specific areas, those very specific areas. And I think, as you just alluded to with the GP comparison, it would be unreasonable to expect someone to be an expert in every single field. And if you can position yourself as an expert, and I suppose it's that thing as to how a lot of our economy is working at the minute. We've got a lot of kind of jack of all trades people, but then you're very specialist areas, and you could just get those things through.
Yeah.
And it does seem to make a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I think it's a very personal area for people to talk about. You know,
Yeah.
often they're opening up about difficult situations within their families where you know they've fallen out with family members, they want to disinherit people, that they're talking about parents who have ill health or mental capacity issues. And it's really, you know, they have to really open up and discuss difficult things with a stranger.
Yeah.
We go to their home, so we don't meet people in an office. So it makes that shift is really important for our clients, that you're seeing them in the comfort of their own home, so they're already feeling more relaxed.
You kind of getting ahead of what my next question was going to be, actually, which is quite nice in a way. But I was just going to ask you, in terms of like sort of will writing and estate planning, because I'm sure we've all seen things on Facebook. You can get a will done online pretty cheaply, but what you now seem to be doing is explaining, well, though it's not always that easy, is it?
No. I mean, yeah, you can get a pro forma from the post office for about 20 quid, do it yourself, but you don't know what you don't know.
No.
And you're filling in this kind of blank template and putting things in where you're contradicting things. You're not considering your family dynamics, because that form isn't asking you those questions. You're maybe not signing it, or getting it witnessed or dated. And, you know, the last thing you want is to think that you've had a will in place and the time comes for you to use it and it's invalid because it hasn't been executed properly, or, you know, you've got things in that you haven't got the proper person as an executor. There's just all sorts of things that can go wrong.
I think that's it. It's like you say, you don't know what you don't know, and it's never an issue until it does go wrong. And you find out
it's too late.
It's a harsh lesson. So can I just ask you the difference then, because you don't introduce yourself as a will writer.
No.
And I say, I've read your online information. Estate planning appears to be very much how you're positioning yourself.
Yeah.
What would be the difference between the two? So
a lot of people think when I introduce myself as an estate planner that I sell houses. So that's you've got to keep people right about that. But a will writer just concentrates on writing wills. With an estate planner, we start to bring in all of the other services. So we would do trusts around wills, where people are wanting more guarantees that the wishes are going to be followed, more protection in how their beneficiaries are going to have their inheritance protected. We do, as well as trusts around wills, a lot of trusts around property protection. People are concerned these days about making sure that their property is still going to be there for the kids to inherit in years to come. So we do work around that, and then under the trusts, and then lasting powers of attorney, which is a huge one. Now, personally, I think they could even be more important than a will for many families, because they're about making things easy for you and your family while you're alive. A will comes into effect once you're dead. So some people could take the view, well, I don't care what happens then, because I'm not going to be around, where a power of attorney does make a big difference when you're still here. But they're equally important, you know, they're both
Can
important.
you clarify, just for anyone that doesn't know, what a power of attorney is?
So a power of attorney is where you give authority to someone else to act on your behalf when you no longer have the mental capacity to do so for yourself. So the two different ones, there's one that looks after your property and financial affairs, and there's one that looks after your health and welfare. So it's about you putting people in place to step in and act when
Yeah.
you're not able to for yourself. If you and typically people think about them as being for older people who have Alzheimer's, dementia,
Yeah.
but they're absolutely not. My two sons in their 30s, they've both got them in place now.
Right. Okay.
Because it's also about losing capacity through the things that you don't expect to happen. Now, COVID was a huge game changer for us.
Yeah.
And people began to realise just the impact of not having control to be able to manage your affairs anymore.
Yeah.
But not having people in place to be able to do it for you. And it's things like, you know, my sons, not so much now, but have been active sports people.
Yeah.
You know, playing rugby, could break their neck, end
Yeah.
up... Yeah, I could have an accident driving home and end up in a coma. I could have a stroke next week. People don't see those kind of things.
I was going to say, I do
coming.
wonder, would your sons have put those things in place, but no.
No,
I think so many don't, do they?
No,
I mean, it would... You correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine that the biggest thing for your average person in the street is just worrying about losing their home.
Yeah.
If they need care.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your views on that? Because there's a national conversation about it.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of younger people, particularly if they live in more expensive places like London, are kind of the view that, well, that's only fair, that people should have to give up their homes. They're accumulating in value massively, which and I can see that point of view, but ultimately I'm a parent and I want to be, and I'll be blunt.
You've worked hard.
I've accumulated. I don't know if people think I work hard, but I mean it's one of these things. I mean, I'm going to be bluntly honest and say that I want my kids to get whatever advantage I can give them. And that's it's nothing to do with my hard work. It's just I want my kids to have a leg up.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know if that's fair, but
I have a very similar view.
Yeah.
Because my mum actually went into care at quite a young age. She was kind of mid-60s, which is young to go into care.
Yeah.
My
grandma was the same actually.
Yeah. So she owned her own home. She'd worked all her life, brought up 3 kids.
Yeah.
More or less single-handedly. Hadn't had fancy holidays or anything like that. So obviously when she was assessed by the local authority for care fees, full fee. So all our pension was diverted, topped up by our savings. When that went, we then had to sell our home, and that went down to, at the time you were allowed to retain £16,000. Now it's up around the 24,000. But that was all that was left of her estate when she died. And it actually coincided with me taking early retirement from the college. And so my husband and I went on these pre-retirement courses, and there was somebody there, financial advisor, who was encouraging us to invest our lump sum. What are you going to do when you get your lump sum from your pension, all of that. But have you also thought about protecting your assets? Did you know that you can actually protect your property from being used to pay for care? And I was like, my ears pricked up because we'd just gone through that. And I thought, we're doing that, absolutely. I'm not having my sons miss out on their legacy for that. And I think it's because it isn't an equal playing field.
No.
You know, so my mum would be in her room paying full fees, and the person in the room next door never worked.
No provision made.
Not really taking care of their money or anything while we're alive, and they're getting everything for free. And it's the injustice of it, I think. If it was equal...
I think you're right. I think as a country, we've got a real bugbear about fairness and perceived fairness. And as I say, that there are other perspectives to look on this, but I know in that situation, I know I'm not saying it's right,
No.
but I know certainly how I would feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And perhaps, you know, when we're done, I can maybe have a chat to you about that.
Yeah.
But are you finding that is where most of your business? Because I think if anything, if there's an emotional driver,
Yes. Yeah.
because we know people buy through emotion,
Yeah.
that has got to be a big one
Yeah.
for you.
But you've got to be so careful as well, because, you know, essentially, if somebody said to me, I want to protect my home because I don't want to pay care fees, I would
Yeah.
have to go, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Because if we do any planning
Yeah.
that is purely to avoid paying care fees in the future, that's classed as deliberate deprivation of assets. And so the
Right.
local authority are quite within their rights to come after you, and they would win if they could.
Yeah.
So companies that openly advertise, put your home in trust, you know, we'll save you.
I think there's a lot of that going on at the minute, isn't there?
There is,
Not just in
but
that,
any
but
client that kind of goes down that route, and then the local authority in years to come will come and investigate and say, well, why can't you pay your full fees? And say, well, put my home in trust. Well, why did you do that? And then they look into the company that they've gone with, and, you know, plastered all over their marketing material is try and defend that and justify what reason you had for doing it that wasn't depriving the local authority of it. So it's a difficult issue to navigate with clients, and if planning is key. So if you are looking at that planning in terms of protecting legacy for your family, and you're doing that and you're in your 50s and you're in good health, compared to being in your 70s and had a stroke the week before, and oh look, your house is miraculously being transferred into trust, then the local authority are going to be very suspicious as to what your motive is.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's like sort of the getting and authorities are getting wise to the loopholes because they're having to get wise to the loopholes, and
they're investing a lot of money in investigating, you know, why people are doing it, and kind of really going into detail with individuals as to what they've done with their money and why. And
I don't know if you want to answer this. If there was a fairer system that didn't have someone that's giving up everything next to someone that's been given everything for free, if they were able to address that, do you think less people would come to someone like yourself?
For that
fewer
reason,
people, sorry.
For that reason, possibly. Yeah.
It just strikes me that no one's actually looking at, and it's often the case, whatever we're talking about, it's like sort of people never, it's also an emotional response, right, we're going to go and get them and we're going to go and punish them, rather than looking at, right, why are they behaving in this way? Why are they looking to, and I think if they just did something that was fair, and everyone could say, well, yeah, fair enough, we can accept this, but this isn't on when I'm paying all this and they're paying nothing.
Yeah, that's right. But I think as well, you have to kind of look at the people that benefit mostly from the use of trusts. You know, they've been around since the Crusades, and the people that are using them are people that are very, very wealthy. Anyway, you know, so you've got your royalty, you've got your politicians, and so people often worry that, well, what if everything changes, but the lawmakers are the ones that are benefiting from all of this.
I was just going to say,
so they're not going to do anything.
Well, again, you've kind of answered before I asked, and it's like, you know, so why do you think trusts are still here, given that they're protecting a huge amount of revenue for the country? From a perspective, do you think it is that cynical that politicians just sort of want to introduce that? But
well, I think I don't know if it is that, to be honest, but I am a bit cynical about it, and I think that a lot of those people are benefiting themselves from it, and you know, they're not gonna. I know when my son went to university, and you know, we were kind of middle of the road, so we're still having to contribute, and there, you know, the rest of his cohort turning up in chauffeur-driven Range Rovers and
Yeah.
whatever, because, you know, Daddy was some high flyer or what, having had all the accountants on the job, they weren't contributing anything. And
No.
I think it's a similar thing. You know,
Yeah.
people are not going to rock the boat where they benefit from those
I was
things.
just going to ask you actually, sort of, trust, is it something that anyone can benefit from, or do you have to be pretty wealthy?
No, I mean, I've done trusts for, like, property trusts for people who live in a 2 up, 2 down, you know,
Right.
or a little miner's bungalow. So not a lot of value in it,
Yeah.
but valuable to them, that they've, you know, that's their kind of life's work has gone into purchasing that, and they
Yeah.
want to have, whatever the value of it, they want to retain that for their children to inherit. But a trust with a will is not really necessarily to do with the value of your assets. It's about protecting those assets for your beneficiaries,
Yeah.
from third parties being able to access. So if, say, one of your daughters went through a divorce in the
Yeah.
future, if she received her inheritance through a standard will,
Yeah.
then it would go immediately into her estate. It would be part of the assets of her family.
Yeah.
If they then go through a divorce, then it becomes part of a 50-50 split. So 50% of what you've bequeathed to her
Yeah.
disappears out
Yes.
to another family. Other examples are, if a beneficiary is on benefits and they receive that through a standard will, they receive it absolutely, so it goes into their estate, the benefits would stop. So they'd be expected to live off their inheritance. Eventually that would run out. They would have to try and get everything reinstated. And equally, if they were in debt, creditors can come and say, well, thank you very much, we're going to take that to settle your debt, because it's theirs. If they received their inheritance through a trust around the will, so it doesn't come directly from the will to them, it goes into the trust and then it's distributed to them from the trust.
Right.
It never enters their estate because it goes to them as a loan.
Right.
So divorce, it's got to be disregarded. Benefits, it's not in their estate. So
Yeah. Why aren't more people doing this?
because they're not aware.
Is it as simple as that?
Yeah, absolutely. People just don't realise. And for me, when I started out doing this, I wasn't doing it to set up a business that's now been running for 13 years.
Wow.
I didn't think that, it was just something at the time to supplement my occupational pension till I got to state pension age, that little gap that you've got.
Yeah.
And then I would kind of walk away. And it wasn't about making money from it because I didn't have to, because, I had an income.
You're comfortable, yeah.
Mortgage was paid off, kids had left home, different situation altogether. Whether I would ever have taken that leap if I had still been working,
Yeah.
with a mortgage, with kids to support, I don't know that I would ever have been that brave. But the timing was just right for me.
I think what is interesting actually is I'm sat here, I'm speaking to someone that I can empathise with because I've been through the education system. I know how that can drain you. And you've sort of described yourself as someone that that's been browbeaten down by it almost. Not forced to retire, but just put into a position where you've just had enough, and retired, and that for some people that's the goal that they're looking for. They think that will make everything perfect. And what I think is amazing in a way, and you've made reference to your age a number of times in this podcast, but talking to you've got a life about you. You've got just a real zest going on, and an enthusiasm and a passion for what you're doing now. And And this always fascinates. I mean, I've experienced this a number of times doing this podcast, and it always fascinates me. It's like on paper, if I wrote down sort of estates and trust, wills and estates, wills and trust, whatever, anything to do with that area, I would really struggle to see how someone can get excited and fired up by that. And then I'm talking to you, and it's like I'm talking to someone in their early 20s with the energy that's coming through and the passion you've got, and the way that you kind of sell the service. It's fascinating. So I've got to say, given that you've retired once and that didn't work out, what's the future looking like for you?
Well, I'll just backtrack just a little bit there, just to say that is what it's always been about for me, the passion to get the word out there and raise awareness. And we do a lot of going to different groups and doing talks like women's institutes and things like that, just to raise awareness. I want people to know that these are the risks that there are to your estate. But these are the things you can do to mitigate those
I think
risks.
People see just doing nothing. They don't see that as a risk. It's like putting your money in a savings account. It's like, oh, that's safe. It's not. No. It's at the risk of being devoured by inflation. And what you're saying is like, don't leave these things to chance.
Yeah, absolutely. But in terms of, when am I going to retire? My husband keeps asking me exactly the same question. I am looking at ways to kind of step back, but because the business has become successful, which I never anticipated. I've got a lot of clients. Some are kind of, you don't expect to get repeat clients when you're doing wills.
I suppose not.
But you do, because circumstances change, and and they might start off just doing a standard will, and then they come back and they want to protect their property, or they want powers of attorney, or they refer you to other family members. So I didn't want to just walk away from this and leave a whole load of clients just with nobody, or to pass those clients over to somebody else. That,
it's never the same, is it?
No, might
never
not
the
be,
same.
Because people buy from people. People have bought into,
I think that,
me and the service that I provide. And if I can keep that going, that's what I want to do. So fortunately, I was able to persuade my daughter-in-law to join the business in January. So she was a sister in A&E.
Oh, okay.
And I think we all appreciate how difficult they've got it in the NHS at the moment, particularly that kind of service in emergency care. And I kind of looked at it, my husband and I had talked about it, and we thought, we think she could do that if we can kind of persuade her. And my youngest son, he's just requalified from being a physiotherapist to being a financial advisor. So he's set his business up doing that, and the two services go really well together. You look at wealth management, but also protection and estate planning.
I can see that, absolutely.
So I had a word with Beth, and I think she must have had a particularly bad day at work one day, and she rang me up and said, right, tell me the details. What do I need to do? So she's all fully trained now, fully on board. So the hope is that it's kind of setting them up with a nice family business to take forward. She still does go in to the hospital, and
I was going to say it does sound like sort of there's potentially something growing here. I will be honest with you, I'm not sure I can't imagine you, just from meeting you today, I can't imagine you stepping back too far, but whatever happens, I'm sure it will go on to be a success. It's been lovely talking to you, Jan. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Cheers.